Item number 4.
Thank you, Your Worship. Chief Executive Officer's report. It's September, so there's not a heck of a lot to report. However, I just want to alert you to a number of issues that I see as relatively important moving forward. On the positive front, the residential sector is seeing a lot more growth this year, so it's pleasing to see 20 new lots in Taupo District in July and 16 in August, with 140 new residential lots in 2015. That's quite a positive sign. On the 16th of March, the chairs of the Bay of Plenty Polytechnic and Wairiki Institute of Technology announced that they were exploring a potential merger, and then Stephen Joyce made a further public comment on that later in the year, and now there is a consultation period, which has just finished, but there has been a consultation period underway, so it's worth keeping an eye on that project. Staff put together a submission on that, and there is a paper on this agenda. Sadly, as staff, we weren't able to get an extension to that consultation period, so we had to put that submission in. The health and safety legislation, it says controversial in my report here. I wouldn't necessarily say it's controversial. It is what it is. It's the health and safety legislation that passed its third reading in August and will come into force on the 4th of April. Just wanted to re-emphasise to everybody in the room that training opportunities have been organised via a LAS shared service opportunity, and so there will be 2 training courses available, one in Hamilton and one in Turangi-Tongariro, that I would suggest that you do your best to avail yourself of that training opportunity. I shall certainly be attending the morning session with any elected members that are interested, and I may even be able to hang around for the afternoon session for our senior staff too. Other than that, the report is taken as read, and we're happy for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Williams, for your report. Any questions? Councillor Christowski.
Yes, thank you for that, Rob. Just a matter of expansion or clarification for my part, please. Under the 4/2, under Ngāti Tu Whakaaro, you talk about different types of governance. Can you sort of expand a little bit on that for me, please?
I could do. Gareth, did you want to expand because you've been closely involved in this?
So this is to do with both the governance of particular pieces of land that may come, or will go back to tūwharetua, which council may have a role in, so joint governance committees of land holdings, and of there is a, I've got to be careful because it is in confidence, but a proposal for a piece of policy work that has a joint committee with this council and Waikato Regional Council.
So it won't, as such, have an effect or impact on our next year's delegation policy review?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Just making sure, Mrs. Nean, are you hearing okay down the back? Is it quite clear? Cool. Okay. All right. Thanks, Councillor Boddy.
On 4/6, in regards to the Iron Delaney Stadium lighting, flood lighting, it's stated that there will be consultations or discussions in early September. Is there any update on that?
A meeting has been held with Sky TV. I'm not entirely sure what the follow-up has been from that meeting because a staff member is currently on leave. Sorry, Gareth, you got an update? They're still talking about it, yep.
Secondly, Mr. Chairman, on 4/7, it might just be a word, the upgrade of the pump stations and generators at Lau Place. It's got prizes being sought from preferred vendors. Should it be tenderers? I thought a vendor was something that sold something rather than, is that the correct terminology?
Bearing in mind that they are buying a pump, I would say a vendor is an appropriate title, yep.
Councillor Park.
Yes, thank you. On 4/4, just in regards to the Waitahanui water treatment plant upgrade, we've been through some consultation. It says that the consultation with the community is still progressing. I'm just wondering what the timetable is with that, because I did attend a meeting a while ago and I just feel I just want to make sure that the communication is still open with the community.
Yep. We recently sent a further letter to the community advising them that we were still consulting and that there was more information being prepared. We're optimistic of bringing a paper or a workshop to councillors in November. Yep.
Thank you. Any questions or Councillor Cousins?
Through the chair, just on page 4/30, second from the bottom, the green dot indicates being on track. It says 49% of the district feel informed about council's long-term direction for council, but last year it was 52%, which means we're tracking downwards, so we plan to be at 0. Is that a goal? I just think maybe that shouldn't be on track. That should be not achieved.
No, it's achieved. The target is 49% and you achieve 52%.
Oh, right. I'm reading it wrong. Oh, right. Okay. I stand corrected. Thank you. Yay.
Oh, celebrate.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Williams, for your report. Sorry. Councillor Truman.
Yeah, so in attachment 2, the Treasury Management Report, could you just explain the pre-funding?
Sorry, I got so serious.
We have a loan tranche that comes up for renewal in April of 2016. A window of opportunity has presented itself to pre-fund that, and we have invested it on deposit. And if you have a look on page 4, you'll see down the bottom in section 4, we actually do show the pre-funding position where that 25 million accrued interest on investment versus the accrued interest on the debt. You can see we're already starting to make money on it. So it was just a matter of taking an opportunity that presented itself in the market. Remember, we did the same thing last financial year.
Councillor Johns.
Thank you. So just following on from Councillor Truman's comment, why do we not include these figures in our performance calculations? Because we make a comment here that we don't include these borrowing and investment figures in our performance calculations.
We've tried to align our performance calculation with the Treasury Management policy, and by having the 25 million on both sides of the ledger instead of netting it off actually distorts the comparison with the performance statistics.
Well, my second question through the chair then, please, was on page 3 of 4 of the Treasury Management Report, our actual asset allocation is way out of the bounds of our target. Can I have an explanation and a justification for that, please? Because that's significant.
Yes, when we in January sold the 20 million ANZ bond, which represented 40% of the portfolio, and if you can remember, the interest rate on that was 5.28%, so we've now been struggling to reinvest it at much more than 4%. It's actually increased our short-term deposits because there's very little corporate paper around as far as long-term investment is concerned, so the money is now sitting short, and that's distorting our ratios.
In terms of our ratios, that is a significantly inconsistent. It's significantly inconsistent to our policy. What are we doing to make sure that people understand that, and when will we rectify that?
We'll rectify it when the market
policy that we're not following.
We'll rectify it when the market conditions change, such that borrowers start coming out with corporate paper that A, meets our credit ratings, and B, is of an attractive enough yield for us to start going back long-term with our investments.
So in your view, and if you apply the principles under Section 80 of the Local Government Act, would we need to relook at changing our policy if what we're doing no longer fits with our policy?
No, we've just, through the long-term plan process, we have changed our some of our performance measurements within our policy.
So these are new ones or the old ones that we're seeing here today?
The new ones we're seeing today, because they came in effect from the 1st of July. And we will be outside those particular ratios as long as the market stays as it is. if there's no paper available to invest into, then we have to stay short with our bank deposits.
Yeah, I mean, and I completely understand the market conditions that have put us in this position, but we sat in a workshop with PricewaterhouseCoopers several months ago when we decided and on the Treasury management policy, and we made decisions on what were best practices, and it just, on paper, this looks like we're outside that best practice and outside that policy, and we need to be very careful about how we manage those and whether that means that our policy is correct.
Well, we are
Gives us
outside.
enough flexibility.
Correct. We're outside the policy and will remain outside the policy because our only option as far as fixed interest investments, and keeping in mind the subdued appetite for equity investments, we have a very heavy exposure into the banks. The only other choice is into higher risk fixed investments, and so we're not prepared to put the fund at risk.
Oh, no, and I would completely agree with you, but I say we're operating under a policy that we can't follow.
I think what Councillor John was just trying to ask is, can the policy be changed to suit the market?
Or give us some more flexibility.
So when is the opportunity to change that policy if we have to next annual plan?
Next one. Basically, it's your policy. So if you agree to go outside the parameters of your policy, that is your decision. It's
No,
not.
I guess, yeah, and I guess I'm bringing it to our councillors' attention that we're outside of that policy, and we need to acknowledge that and highlight that. I mean, I find it a little bit frustrating, to be honest, that I get this report the day before a council meeting, and then I have to go through the information with less than a day to analyse it, and I'm finding that very difficult. I don't think that's fair on us councillors either, when we get these sorts of things, to have a day.
Mr. Ryan, can I just comment on that? I think the important thing is that you're informed that the information is here, because as staff, the TEF and the committee could actually increase the share of equities, both international and Australian, and stay well within the policy, but they don't believe that that is the best form of investment at this point in time. So that is the purpose of this information, so that you are aware that you're outside the policy, but there are good reasons to be outside the policy.
Through the chair, at the September meeting last year, councillors passed a comment that there were no financials at that particular stage. We advised council that we've been working to complete the annual report, which you've got once again 12 months down the track, taking into account the comments made a year ago. The staff have basically worked their butts off to produce a set of financials that is tabled for the September council meeting this time, keeping in mind your comment of 12 months ago. Hence, you only received it in the last 24 hours.
So with that note then, next time round, we could expect to get it sooner?
Not necessarily. Depends on the work involved in producing the audited annual report, which you have tabled here today.
Okay, Councillor Hickling?
So does that mean, Your Worship, that we should be passing a resolution to move out of our policy until the finance comes right, or not? Or
No, I think
work in default?
What Mr. Manhattan is trying to explain, that the condition at the moment is outside the policy, but as soon as the bonds become available or the notes become available, we'll be within the policy. So it comes in and out of the policy, is that?
If you refer back to each of the months for the latter half of the last financial year, you will find that this particular situation occurred, and hasn't just started, it's been going on since we liquidated that 20 million ANZ corporate bond.
Just to further add to the councillor's question with regards to that, I think the fact that we've minuted the conversation is important. I think also the fact that you have a resolution to have received the report is sufficient at this point in time. However, depending on how long we remain outside of the policy, it may well be worth us bringing a resolution to you at some point in the future, just to have some commentary on the market conditions and when we do believe it may change for us, and I think that we'll keep an eye on that over the next couple of months and possibly bring a paper or a resolution to you to assist with that concern.
Councillor Body?
Chairman, there's two issues. One is the one we were just discussing now. In fact, the previous council moved a resolution to vary policy for that BBB. So they actually did that, probably as protection, I don't know. So I'm wondering whether what we're talking about at the moment is a wise move. But what I want to refer to is attachment 2 down under notes, and it's note 1 about this particular short-term breach. Now I know this is to the 31st of August, so the notes finish up since matured on 23rd of September. Council is now back within policy limits. So that's happened after this was printed, Alan. Would that be correct?
That's correct, as far as our exposure to each individual bank is concerned.
I admit I was surprised to get these, because going on last year we didn't get them now, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
But what I want to also raise is that in a previous document, it actually said this would not happen again. This wouldn't happen from the 1st of July 15. Well, it has happened. So I'm just wondering whether somehow that we've ended up in that, having made that comment, that it won't happen again.
Yeah.
Councillor Cousins?
Just a couple of things. I endorse what Councillor Jolland said. I was reading the financial report, and I hear what you're saying, Alan, without a doubt. But I was reading this document last night at 11 o'clock. My contact lenses were making my eyes stick shut, and then I was doing it again this morning over my Weet-Bix. There's no point giving us one view part of the report without the other, and then expecting us to be thoroughly informed. I hear what you're saying about time factors with the crew. Then it all needs to come at once in a timely fashion for us, is what Councillor Jolland is saying, and I take on board what you're saying. But if we can find a way through that, that'd be fantastic. Moving on from that, just under attachment, the attachment we got for the financial update, I spoke to this, or emailed the CEO this morning about staffing levels, and he's given me great clarification that we're now at 355 staff within the council environment, excluding CCOs. Concerns me is our wage bill is climbing quite dramatically from 17.8 million in 2013 to, I propose, 19,650 this year. I admit that we've gained 13 new staff members, but it seems incredibly high. I just wanted a top table answer on that one.
I think the long-term plan demonstrates where the future will lie, and I'm quite actually proud of the results that we will achieve over the next 10 years in terms of the long-term planning. Our staffing was built into that long-term planning, so I don't foresee any huge issue in relation to staffing. When I first arrived here, I think those figures were 455 with about 380 FTEs, and now we're sitting at 355 with 289 FTEs, so I'm not overly concerned about that.
The downside for me is that our income hasn't increased to offset that ratio. That would be my concern. I urge caution moving forward with that one. And another question for Alan, hopefully he can answer. Just looking at total net assets, we're currently at 1,618,000. I could be reading it wrong from previous annual reports, but it seems to have decreased, or am I reading those documents wrong? From 1.256 to 1.2 million, or 200 million, to 1 million now, or am I reading them, I could be interpreting them incorrectly.
Are you comparing the end of the financial year?
What you've got here is 1,618,000, and I'm just comparing against the previous years what our net assets were, but I could be misinterpreting those figures.
Well, there's two factors there. One is the revaluation of assets at the end of the financial year. Second one is the transfer of the ETA across to NZTA, which, if you remember, was a substantial hit on our P&L, so that is in fact the main movements in the value of the assets.
Cool. Okay, thanks very much.
That also include the liabilities, not just the changes of the bypass. 2 months of 31 August on the agenda item 2, the financial performance one. Total assets of 1.2 billion, net 1 billion.
Sorry, you talking about the net amount or the total
I'm just
liability?
talking what the balance sheet is showing at the moment.
Well, the total liabilities, of course, take into account that 25 million pre-funding,
Okay.
and so therefore it flows through to the assets on the other side. But the net position is pretty much in line with what we're predicting it to be at the end of the year.
Chairman,
1 million versus 1 million, or 1 million versus 998.
Could I now have some
Yeah.
assistance in reading the income statement and the financial update? It's got total operating revenue in the first part of the figures. Should that be compared with the long-term plan figures for the start of this financial year? So when we go to the full-year budget, in this particular document, that's the one with the yellow lines, should that correspond with the first year's total operating expenditure in the long-term funding impact statement?
Are you talking about the 2 months to the end of August in the income statement?
Yes, the income statement, full-year budget.
Yeah. Well, the year-to-date budget, you will not have in the long-term plan what the year-to-date budget is to the end of August. It's a whole year budget.
I'm looking at the full year.
Well, so it's phased month by month. It's not automatically a full year divided by 12.
No, I appreciate that. I'm looking at the full-year budget, which shows here 77 million.
Yeah.
The long-term plan, total operating revenue, full budget is a different figure. So are you telling me that that figure each month, the full-year budget, which was set in the long-term plan, will change?
No.
Down the back there, she's got a quick
So,
answer.
Jeanette?
When I enter the budget figures, and there's a couple of items that get removed out in terms of internal transactions and rates, commissions and stuff, that's not expressed the same way in the long-term plan, I think, but I'll have to go back and have a look. But the bottom line, the 5098 at the bottom is the same as the long-term plan.
Okay, thank you. I wonder if we could have a right at that, because we're trying to compare apples with apples, we're not able to do so. Thank you.
Oh, can I just comment too, this report is obviously based on last year's format. We are considering moving to the format that your annual report is in this year, because we want you to be seeing the same thing that you see at the end of the year. So the next report hopefully will be in the format of the current annual report.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks Councillor Buddy, thank you Jeanette. Right, so 4/2 is the suggested resolution there. Could I have a mover please for that? Thank you Councillor Christowski, seconded by Councillor Williamson, thank you. All those in favour please say aye. Those against? Carried.